Hey everyone, I'm back with another attempt to do a video about the way we use data in Noodle or versus Bubble or other no-code tools. So I've tried this a couple of times already, and before I realized that my screen recording software was bugging because of space problems on my computer. So my bad, but this time it's all going to go fine, and the screen's not going to freeze, and we're all going to be very happy at the end. So yeah, the big question that gets asked a lot in the Discord, has been asked ever since the bubble switched last year, is how do I get live data into my app? How do I make it so that if I'm looking at a page full of listings for my example tutorial app Super BNB, if I have a page of listings and somebody in a million miles away adds a new listing, adds a boat onto this or something that you can rent, that I would see that appear on my browser side immediately. So in Bubble, that's just kind of a given. So we've been spoiled into thinking that that's a normal thing to happen. That if you update a database, everybody who's currently viewing your web page just magically sees that new data appear on their page. So this is a Bubble trick. And working with a friend of mine who's a developer, who's a network engineer, serious lifelong engineer, we studied what Bubble was doing, and the only conclusion you could possibly come to is that they're using some sort of WebSocket. So a WebSocket is when normally if you do an API call, you're doing a one-way call and a one-way response. So I call my database and I say, hey, can you give me some results, please? And the database says, yep, here's 10 results. And then I can call it again and say, give me 10 more, and it gives me 10 more. A WebSocket is when we make that call but don't hang up. It's not just a message, it's more like a phone call. Like I connect to the database and say, hey, if there's any change in this list of listings in the database, if there's a new listing or a listing has changed, or if we delete a listing, I want that to be transmitted to this phone call, to the end of this phone call. So you give me the new data, any new lines. I don't care if I added them or someone else added them, you give me those new lines. And so that's a WebSocket connection. Every user who's currently viewing this page with these particular listings will also be connected to that same channel, if you can call it that. I think in MQTT world it's called channels. So everyone is connected to that listing channel. And then also I want people to see if the reviews change. If someone gives a new review to this and it goes up 2 stars, I want them to see the stars increase in front of them live. I don't want them to refresh the page, to have to redo a query. I want them to see it live. Well, that's another WebSocket connection. It's not the same WebSocket connection. So it'll connect to a new broker, a new channel in the broker that says, okay, now I want to know if there's any new reviews added specifically about these listings that this person is currently looking at. So I'll subscribe to that channel. And then there's also the user channel. If the username is up here, I didn't actually put the username in there, I could do. If the username is on this page in this card listing, yeah. If the user is on here, then I want to have their string formatted name, first name and last name. On here maybe, and we'll say by first name, last name. Make it nice and small. It's terrible. I'm sorry. I'm not wasting time making this look pretty, but let's add a little bit of definition maybe, so people don't laugh at me too much. Oh dear, it's too much definition. I guess because the text is probably give it a max width. Oh no, not good. Okay. Oh, a bit bigger. Oh, too big. Okay, whatever. I don't remember what this was supposed to be. This was probably supposed to be the username. That. First name. last name, and first name, and last name. Yep. Okay, so now we've got the name of the user who created it. First name. Oh, I am doing that, not camel kiss, snake kiss. I can't remember what it's called. I'm doing something with capital letters at the beginning this time for some reason. Okay, so if Richard decides to change his name, just to continue what I was talking about before, then I also want that name to change in front. So that's a third channel. That's the user's channel connected to the user's table, so that if Richard changes his name, then I see that name change in front of me. I don't have to refresh the page. So once again, same sort of concept. So that's three channels just to see these listings. For example, you and I are both looking at these listings. That's 2 people subscribed to 3 channels equals 6 connections. That's counted in WebSocket connections. The broker is the one that's holding these connections open and keeping them alive. So if you look at other tools, like for example, Supabase was very popular when the no-code bubble revolution happened. People were running to Supabase because Supabase very clearly advertises that it has real-time connections. So what that means in Supabase world is I'll open channels for you so that you can monitor certain databases and return new data to users who are currently looking at that channel. So that's 200 concurrent connections. That means 200 active connections. Like if we had our 3 channels, our user channel, our review channel, and our listing channel, we would only be able to get 200 divided by 3, which is, I don't know, something like 60 people. 60 people, more than 60 people, like more than 65 or whatever people, would be too many people. That would breach the real-time connection limit. So it just goes to show kind of, even if you're on the pro plan, 500 real-time connections, well, that's 500 divided by 3. Oh my God, I'm so terrible at math. 50 divided by 3 and 15, so 45 is anyway, not that many. 150 people would already be too much, but we'll be getting towards too much with about 450 connections. So 150 people looking at your app at one time, that's not normally what your target is. Your target, I guess, for if you're making a really big public app, is going to be potentially thousands of people every day looking at your app. So this kind of managing these kind of connections, WebSockets, and this is only one page, like this is just one silly example. In Bubble world, there was, you could have a page with like 10 different WebSockets on the same page, probably. I don't know how Bubble exactly works, but the point is that it's expensive. The more connections you have, the more brokers you're going to need to set up, because it's not a question of, oh, you can only have 500. It's a question of there's not that many open ports you can actually have for people to connect in through to be able to keep these things open. So you need to set up new brokers and manage those brokers and, manage which user goes to which broker and all that stuff. So it's very complex and it can be costly. So I would really recommend you forget about this bubble trick of having live data everywhere and instead work with arrays, objects. That's what, any classic development project will be doing, is working with the kind of state data, like the data that's held in the session that the user is currently looking at, and when they change pages, the session gets reset and they look at new data. So if I go from this page to this page, in traditional development, that would have been, I wouldn't have had the data perhaps stored anymore, or the developer would have had to store the listing data in local storage and then access that from local storage. So that's another way you could do it. In Noodle world, what I'm using here is, first of all, 2 elements to make this faster. First of all, I'm using a component stack. So this handy Noodle element that allows me to swap out large or small components on my page. In this case, I'm using it to swap out the entire contents of the page for 2 different views: listing search, which is this one. So these things here are listing search, and listing detail, which is what you just saw when I click in here. I get into the listing detail page. So what it's doing in the component stack is just swapping them out. If I go back, it goes to search, and if I go into this one, it goes to detail, and it's very, very fast. which is nice. So that's one element of speed. The second element is when the page is loaded, I'm doing a get all listings function. So I want listings, I want users, and I want reviews. I want that when someone clicks on this, they see, when someone opens the page, they see the listing details and the username pretty quickly. And I want that when they click on this listing, they see all the reviews for that listing instantly. I don't have to wait for them to query every time they go into it. This works because I'm going to make a page where there's only 10 listings at a time, for example. So I'm assuming that 10 listings is going to have maybe, 10, maybe one day I'll make it 10 top reviews that I'm going to load so that they can see the first 10 reviews and then they can click if they want to load more. So it's about 100 results, 100 reviews and 10 listings, and then 10 users as well. I'm going to do a user query as well. So that's 120 things, 120 objects that I'm going to have in the front end, which sounds scary if you're coming from Bubble World, because in Bubble World, you query and load 100 things into the front end, and the entire thing just starts slowing down to, it takes quite a long time, let's say, to load up. I remember one app I worked on that had like queries with nested queries for like 100 different lines, and you could wait up to 45 seconds. We clocked it at once for like 150 results or something like that. Like, it's just, bananas, because you have no control in Bubble over what query, when it's queried, is it stored? Bubble automatically stores things from queries and then reuses them if you do the same query somewhere else, so it doesn't have to do the same query twice. But you don't have control over that. Whereas with Noodle, you have the full control. You can say, okay, I'm going to do a function on page load. The function is going to be, why am I doing it in here instead of a query? Because I want to use the include parameter to mean that when I do, and I don't want to use this, to mean that when I do my query to get all the listings, and maybe I'll put something here that says limited to 10 listings. I can't remember where that is. Noodle records query limits. There we go. Sort completed limit 200. So could that just go in here? Limit 10, maybe. Yep. Is that okay? Yeah. Cool. So it's limited to 10. Okay, so I'm doing it here because I use the include parameter because I want to download all of the listings from the database, and I want it to give me an object for each one of those records that is the user object created by is a user pointer, right? So if you have a pointer field, the advantage of a pointer field is you can ask the query to include the data of the pointer. It only works with pointers, not relations. So if you have one user who created this, then all of the listing queries that come back will have all of the listing data as usual, but also this created by object nested inside it. And what's really cool about this, getting this created object, is it takes away the need for a second query about the users that are related to these listings. But also when I'm asking for the, for example, in the listing card, I can actually take that created by object and reference it somewhere and then pull out the data from it, because this object is local now. It's been included in the first query. It has an ID that is the ID of the user. And so I can reference that anywhere as an object, and it means it's working with local, light local data, right? Just this nice locally stored data. You don't have to do a query. If, on the other hand, I decided to not include in the listing, and I decided to make a record node and say, I want you to query the user that created this, then when I'm loading the page, you wouldn't see any results here because we didn't include it in here. You would see a user and you would see an ID, and there would be no data. You would need to hook it up and say, okay, when this is mounted, then fetch it. And what would happen then is if you load the page, it's going to load each one of those listings. And every time it has one in the repeater, it's going to make a call to the database and say, hey, can you give me this user, please? It's not going to bulk them together. What do you call them? It's not going to, do a batch. That's the word I'm looking for. It's not going to do a batch request. It's going to do, okay, number 1 user is Richard, number 2 user is Frank, number 3 user is Jane, and it's going to do them one by one. And it's going to take about 200 to 300 milliseconds per request. So you're going to see them appear like tuk, 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 tuk. And if there's other requests happening at the same time, you might not even see them appear that quickly. It might prioritize other requests first, or it might be like part of a nested system. So, you know, you've got the top level requests and then the nested requests. So this is not an efficient way to do it. If you can avoid doing it like this, it's the best. If you can try to get as much data on page load as possible, and then just use them throughout the app as objects, that's like instant, as opposed to having to wait 300 milliseconds for a query. So that's really where the speed comes. Created by. Okay, so that's one thing to think about. We've got our listings. We've got all of the first 10 listings plus the created by objects. We are going to pipe it into an array. So I've put an array down and given it a name, listing search results. If I don't change page, anywhere I place this array on the page, I can access it from, and I can have just that local data, the session data, be able to filter it, be able to work with it, do whatever I want with it, use it in functions, and never have to query the database again. So this is really, really important. From that, I had a little problem, because what I wanted to do was to get all of the reviews for all of the listings all at once. And with parse, that's not possible. Not just with Noodle, with parse, it's not possible. So a listing has a relation called hasReviews, which I could use to check which actually probably is not even necessary anymore, now that I think about it. I would have used it if it was a many-to-many relationship, like if one review could be for 2 different listings or whatever, something strange like that, then I could say, show me all of the listings that this review is in the relations of, right? But that's actually not important in this app, so I don't think I'm going to do that. I'm going to delete that column. Maybe that's a rash decision. I don't know. We'll find out. What I did instead was I said that a review belongs to a listing, meaning that I can take my list of listings, funnel it into a function that says, okay, take that list of listings and map the items and just leave the item ID. So give me an array of IDs, so unique IDs, which is here. And then put that into a review query, and with a JavaScript filter, we're going to use and you can find all these on the Noodle website in the advanced filters is called. Query records, advanced filters, really useful. Belongs to listing field in the review, points to, and then we can have a list of things. We don't just have to have one, we can actually have an array of different things. So we can say points to, and this will come up as like, you know, something with square brackets, and so it'll say, oh, it's in that list, so yeah, it points to something in that list. And then you'll get back all the reviews. Oh, no, it didn't work. Why did it not work? No. It did work before, did it not work before? Okay, let's go back to the drawing board then. I don't mind, I like going back to the drawing board. So points to, yeah, in an array of IDs, that's it, points to. Put my post ID, okay. Points to, yeah. So the field points to, and then we can have an array of things that it points to. I was right. Oh, thank goodness. And I don't know why it's not coming up. Probably because it's running too soon. Could it be? Could it be because it's running too soon? No, it couldn't be. I have my array of IDs. I have my query, and I have some reviews. And the reviews belong to listing is undefined because I was supposed to update it before, I think, and I forgot about it. Genius. Okay. So let's take the house listing. We can manually change the pointers and all that stuff in parse, which is handy. So the house sort of is good, and the house sort of sucks. 2 reviews. And then the flat review is this ID. And that's the last 2 there. This one and this one. And now we refresh, and now we'll get our items as expected. No, we won't. Did it not save? It did save. And it's called the fields is the right field, is it? Belongs to listing, and here with a capital B, Muppet. I started the app doing it, I can't remember what the case is, if it's camel case or snake case, I never remember. But normally I use small letters at the beginning, I like that one. But then I started using big letters, capital letters for some reason, and just lost my mind. So ignore me, there it is. All the reviews you could ever want. Beautiful. And in theory I could have said include the listing data, but I don't need to because I've already got the listing data. That would just be creating unnecessary weight. So it's just this kind of thought process of, oh, I don't need to do the includes for this because I've already got the listings. So I don't need to do, you know, another. Okay, it's got 2 different belongs to listings. What the heck? What have I done with my app? I'm going crazy. So we'll just delete that. Oh no, it's already deleted. Okay, well then it's my Noodle app that's going crazy. No worries. Not me. Okay, so reviews are then being piped into another array called all reviews. And then before I was extracting the user created bys and then doing a query, but actually I don't need to do that anymore because I replaced it by this lovely function. So all these users is actually redundant that I'm getting out of these reviews. Oh no, no they're not. No they're not. Silly me. I've got the users who created the listings, and then I have to get the users who created the reviews. So I'm taking the same sort of thing again. I'm taking the input array, I'm mapping it, and taking the created by field, mapping that out to the users who created the reviews. It's only 1 user, and so it returns me this 1 user who made the reviews. Whew, okay, that was intense. So what does that matter? That matters because then in every single one of these pages, all I'm using is objects. So this is an object from the repeater, fine, that's normal. Then there's a creator object, and then I'm taking the reviews and I'm filtering them through and saying the belongs to listing field. I want to know if this listing is in the belongs to listing field. Then give me the 2 reviews or 0 reviews. Oh yeah, because that changed. Give me the small b, give me the 2 reviews that match that query. I need to refresh. Super listings. There we go. So it took all the reviews, filtered them down to 2. Filters are great if they're being filtered on local data in the front end. It's going to go nice and fast, and then you're going to see your reviews instantly. If I go back, go to the other one, I see my review instantly. It's just, you know, I can refresh the page, do it again, instant. Yeah, I'm working with local data, you know, whatever. But it, you know, even in test mode, this would be very fast. The query might take a minute on the page load, but not a minute. That's a turn of phrase. The query, I have to be careful. The query would take a second on the page load, and that's it. So that's easy peasy. So then the next big question is going to be, what do we do if we add some data? How do you manage adding data? So let's do a add listing page. Do a few fields, text input. So it's going to be the name and the image, I guess. Upload file picker. I'll pick some horrible princess pictures or something from my computer. So we'll make a button. Yeah, I have princess pictures on my computer because I have 2 little girls. That needs explanation. I just realized. And then an image to show the image that you've uploaded. Preview. Image preview. Upload. And then we're going to put that into an object, I guess. No, we're not. We're just going to put it into a set create record node. And the record is going to be listing. The uploaded file is going to be the image. The input is going to be the listing name. And the button is going to open the file picker. And the file picker is going to trigger an upload. And that'll go in here. And then when we click the save button, then that's going to save the new listing. I'm doing this very, very rashly. It's listing name. Upload button. Image preview. And save button. Let's go and see what that page looks like. Oh my, it's beautiful. Let's get a little group with like a fixed width and height and put these in it. Oops. 50% is a bit ridiculous, sorry. And make that content and center it, and then make it, I don't know, 20 gap. And then that label is going to be placeholder label. Okay, listing name. And the button's going to say upload photo. And this is going to say save. Okie dokie. At the same time, we're going to open another window. 192.168.2.2. Oh, you know what we could do? We're going to deploy to a sandbox. Oh, I have a sandbox already. Nice. We're going to do that just before. I want to show you. So I'm in it. I want to show you me in a sandbox, looking at the same cloud service, which is the training cloud service. Can I do that? Oh, you know, I have to change cloud service. That's it. Tutorial. Yeah, so I'm going to show you one person sitting looking at the listings in the sandbox deployment, and then another, and then this person who's in the local one where I am doing a new listing and saving it, and then it'll appear in front of the person who's on the sandbox page, which in theory is a different user. So can argue. So we should see a new listing appear here at the bottom. Okay, and what am I going to do now? Okay, so we are going to need to be able to update this. There's two things we need to do. First of all, we need to get our array of all listings. Listing search results, and then we need to add an object, insert an object into the array. So when the listing is created, we need to put that object manually into the array. So then I'll have it in my one, and on my screen, right? So that's just one thing. It's generally a good idea to do. Oops. Success do. And this array is the array ID. So it's going to insert that new object into the array of listings. So then me on my side, I'll see it in my local data. I don't necessarily need to do a new query to get that data down. That's super important lesson number one. When you create new records, they're going to go to the database. You don't need to query the database. You already have the data right in front of you. So why don't you just take the data that was used to create the record and insert it into the array of listing search results, which is like a local array. I don't need to query it to get that new result back. That's redundant. I will have two identical lists for the ones that I already queried and the ones that I've created. It'll be the same list in the database as it is the list that I'm downloading in front of me, or the list that I'm updating in front of me. So this is the way to do that part. Once that's inserted, then we need to get everybody else to have the same effect. We need to have everyone else's listing search results array updated with that object. Now I can't do that from here because my objects are all local. I have to send that object somewhere for it to inform all the other people who are looking at that particular object. So we're going to do that within a module called MQTT. So MQTT is a WebSocket type protocol that allows you to send events to a certain channel. So the channel we're going to call test channel globally, and the payload is going to be the new, what could the payload be? Yeah, it really needs to be the new object ID. So this is the new listing ID. Listing ID. So now the channel name, normally the channel name would be something specific. So for example, if I was looking at a listing, then I would want to maybe subscribe to a channel called that listing's name, right? So that listing's ID, sorry, that listing's ID. So then anybody who makes a change on that listing page, I'm going to see it on that listing page, but I'm not going to receive messages for all the other listings that I don't care about because I'm not looking at them right now. Maybe somebody's just updated listing number 25. I don't want to receive an event about every single listing on the whole app. So it can be specific. I'll give you an example in LearnBook. When I'm looking at a lesson for a student, I've got the structure is lesson, section, message. So if someone adds a new message to the section that I'm currently looking at, or another section in that lesson that I'm not currently looking at, I program it to receive the event because I subscribe to a channel that is the object ID of the lesson. And I say, if anybody currently is looking at that lesson, no matter what section or what message they're on, I want them to receive the new message, and I want the section that it's related to be updated locally. I don't want them to have to query when they change from section 1 to section 2. I want that when they change from section 1 to section 2, all the messages are already there, even if a new one has been added. So it's added in the background by magic. If it's a section 2 message and I'm looking at section 1, then I still want section 2's array to be updated locally. And that happens with this send and receive event thing that receives an event anytime anyone does anything in that lesson, I send an event to that lesson ID's channel. So everybody who's looking, no matter what section they're on, will receive that message on their end, and it'll update with the ID of the message that was just created, right? So that's the send event idea, and then the receive event idea. I'll put it up here. So we'll put it on the page level. Receive event channel, we're going to call it test channel. If it was the other user, you would call it the channel like lesson ID. So that, you know, we all see the same lesson ID. It's just one ID from the database. Consume means if you have multiple receive events nodes for the same channel, then the first one that receives it uses it up or something like that. And if we choose never, then all of the different receive nodes, I think, receive the message, something like that. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. And the payload that's coming through is going to come out here in the receive event, I guess. I can't remember. So that's good. If we receive that event and it's not us who created the listing, then we need to put our own object into the listing search results. So we don't have that object. We didn't create it. We don't know anything about it. So we're going to need to get it from the database. That's one query we just have to do. So if, oh look, listing ID, it is there. So if I receive a listing ID, put it into the record, and when it's received, I fetch the record. Then I insert the object into the array. So I take my listing search results array, and I insert this fancy new object into it. And that's when it's been fetched. That's what I do. Okay, good. I think that's right. Yeah, so even if multiple IDs are there, it's going to receive and fetch a new listing. And when it's fetched, it's going to add it into the listing search results. So I'm not going to do this query again, get all listings, because I would be doubling up. I would have the 9 listings I've already got plus 1 new one. So, but I would still receive those 9 listings from the query. I still have to get the query is still going to return the 9 listings. It doesn't care that I have them on the front end. So this is a way to do it in a way that you'll only have to query the new data to get that into your array. And then everyone is seeing the same thing across the board. So let's see if that works. Oh, it won't work. Why not? Because now that I've added my MQTT module, I have a thing called a broker URL. So I need to go and get a broker. Won't somebody give me a broker? And Shiftr is going to be my little test broker that was recommended by Noodle, and I like it. So you just can use it or not use it. I don't really care. We're going to deploy an instance. We're going to do a basic instance. It gives you 100 active connections. So we're back to the active connections concept, and 5,000 messages per second. So that should be pretty reasonable. If you wanted to do your own, then you could do Mosquito. It's a handy little MQTT broker that you can set up and run yourself. You can have it on AWS, you can have it on whatever platform you prefer, Google Cloud or your own server at home. And it can run as many connections as your server can handle, basically. And it's not limited by cost in that case. But remember, it's not going to be more than a few hundred active connections, so don't get excited. There we go, deploy instance. So that's not the one I wanted. Where's my wheat test thing? Wheat frill, that was the one I just did. Wheat frill. So it's running, it'll run for 6 hours on the free plan, and then it'll shut down and I'll have to restart it. So it's good for testing. So all you need for testing. So it's set up this broker, and we're going to get this super awesome interface that you're going to love. It sets up a little interface for us, and we'll be able to see this super spider diagram of all of the connections that are happening. I have to make it a public connection so that anybody can connect from anywhere. I have to get a token, I think. So test tutorial, secret and full access. Okay. Okay, this is what I need then. This is the test tutorial endpoint. This is what I was looking for to get into here. And we can't just leave it as MQTT. We have to make it WSS, if I remember right. And then reload the page. Check your debugger. And hopefully you'll see MQTT connected to WSS, blah, 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 blah. Otherwise, you're going to see failed to connect, failed to connect, failed to connect, and it's going to repeat and repeat and repeat until you get the right connection. That's either because it's WebSocket secure, so it's web secure socket, WebSocket secure. It's either going to be WebSocket, WS, double point and whatever else, or it's going to be WSS. That's the only things that seem to work with Noodle. And then normally it's like the username, double point, the password, at, and then the server address. And so for like my Mosquito one, it was WS because it was running it on a Linux server and it wasn't secure. WS double point, and then it was like, you know, Ubuntu and then password and then at 192, whatever the address was, the IP address and the port at the end as well that was necessary. But anyway, here we're good. And what do we see on this side now that somebody's connected? Look at that. Noodle MQTT and some unique ID there connected to, and I don't think it shows us a channel because we haven't sent a message yet. Now watch what happens when we send something. Watch what happens here. Oh, no, here. Oh, I have to deploy. If it works. It will work. It might work. Nothing ever works the first time when you develop it, I don't think. If it does, it's pretty miraculous, or you've probably tricked yourself into thinking it's working, but actually something's gone wrong. So we'll refresh that, check our JavaScript console to make sure that the MQTT is connected. Yes, it is. Yeah, one of the problems I had with that was I was using an MQTT on an unsecure server. Like I said, it was WS double point // when I deployed it, because the deploy is on HTTPS, it's on a secure web address. It didn't want to connect to the MQTT because it was cross-origin. It was like, no, you can't connect to something that's not secure from a website that is secure. Don't be ridiculous. So I had to set it up on WSS to get it working. I had to add a certificate, an SSL certificate to the Mosquito server, and that made it WSS, and then it worked fine. So that's great. So now we're going to try to create a listing. Oh my goodness. So this is going to be the super fast live data bubble sucks listing. Sorry. Flat boat. And we'll put a, I don't know what's, yeah, another house on there. No, I'll put a princess on there. Get a nice princess on there. It's a ballerina. No, kittens. That's why the heck not. Oh, it didn't work. Oh yeah, it doesn't like long kittens. It doesn't like long file names, and it doesn't like parentheses. It doesn't like all sorts of different things. The Noodle file uploader is very, very particular. Let's put it that way. Did it work? It didn't connect up the images maybe? Anyway, doesn't matter. Let's save it and see what happens. So let's check to see what's happening in the background there. Look, I don't know if you can see that. Save. Is it going to work? No, it didn't seem like it. Let's go and find out why. Oh, it did do something. Insert into array. Oh, would help if I connected up the event, wouldn't it? Jeez, oh. All right. No, nothing yet. Okay. Patience, grasshopper. So we sent the event. That's not for us, so it doesn't matter. And did it receive an event in the listings page? We should actually see it here. No, it didn't. What's happening with our MQTT server? Could not connect to instance. We have 2 connections, but no channel yet. It's not receiving any messages. Why you not want to send a message? Why? I've had 3 triggers. What's going on? You know what we're going to do? We're going to quit it and restart it, because sometimes it just is added a new module, so you need to quit and restart to get it to really work properly. So add listing. And our add listing page, yeah, it's whatever. Test bubble sucks. Put a kitten in there. Okay, and then we're going to create something and send event. Put the in, that's okay. And did it receive it? Not triggers. Oh, come on, you. What's your problem? Let's do a little experiment then. Send event. Channel is going to be testing. 2, 3. It's global. Yeah, sending it, you can send it through. Oh, hold on a second. Oh, I'm such a muppet. That's not this. That's not the MQTT send. That's a different node. It's send message for MQTT. Oh my goodness, don't laugh at me. Please don't laugh at me. You can laugh, it's fine. You can say, you wasted my time, Richard. Wasted it. Test channel, the payload coming in is going to be listing ID. This is some other, I can't even remember what this is. It's some other module like, what was it? Data context. I think it's that one. I think it's that one. Data context sends events and receives events. Oh my goodness. And oh no, what am I doing? Oh my goodness, I'm getting flustered. No, I'm not. But no, I have a whole bunch of listings that I don't want in there. Yeah, I don't want all those pretenders. Away with you. Okay, and now we need to do the send event correctly this time. And it's not send event, it's send message. I knew there was something. You know what? I didn't see it. You know, when I did send, we agreed that there was only send event, there was no send message, and that was because I didn't restart Noodle. And sometimes you just need a little restart to get things working. So it's going to send to test channel. It's going to be JSON formats. You can also send on change, which is cool. It means that if the input changes, then it'll send a message every time. So if if the message changes from one to another or whatever, I don't want to do that. I'm going to send listing ID. You can rate limit it. You can have a certain number of messages per second. You can control a lot of things about it from here, which is really nice. So we're going to send that. We're going to use the listing ID here. Delete that. And there we go. Send message. Got it. All right. So let's have a look at listings. Put that in the background. You should be able to see it. So super message listing. Bubble still sucks. This title is too long. And we'll break the display because I like breaking things. Let's get a kitten in there. You gotta get a kitten in there. It's just, yeah, it would have been nice if we could have the preview of the kitten, but whatever. Oh, and of course, if I don't deploy it, that ain't gonna work, is it? That would have been disappointing. Just, one step at a time, man. Got our 2 listings. Are you ready? In theory, this is gonna work. Send message here. Go. Oh, look at that. Yeah, it did break the display a little bit, but not too much. We didn't put the created by user. Oops. Anyway, so that's a separate user that's just received. Look, that's just received the message. One trigger. Oh, not triggered. Okay, lovely. That received the message on their side, connected to test channel, got the listing ID, inserted it into their listing search results object, and on their side, they see the new result. And if I go back to my listings, of course, I'll see it because it's going to do an update there. But if I went in here and did add listing, and you keep your eye on this in the background. Let's delete that kitten one. Oh, delete this class. Yeah, that would have been funny. And then refresh. Obviously, if I delete it, you need to work on that as well. If you delete the listing, you have to remove it from the array as an object so that the person sees it, and also send a message to say, you could have a payload to say create or delete or something like that, and then say like if it's create or delete as a value of the payload or like operation, and then say like create or delete, and if create do this, if delete do this, fetch it, delete it. That would be a way to remove them from your list. So if we put this like this, so you can see that sort of, no, you can't really, down there like this. Yeah, you can see that there, right? Sort of. And if I type in another cool test, short this time, we put in I don't know what photo, a vector. Yeah, sure, why not a document vector? That's gonna be beautiful. And then we save it, wait for it, save. Oh, look at that. That's beautiful. I love it when things work. I told you things never work the first time. It's the excitement of getting them to work when you've broken it and you're tearing your hair out and then you finally get it to work. That's when you really get a buzz of being a good developer. So all happening with the minimum data queries you could possibly ask for. And I would consider that a good success. So I'm going to stop there because it's a long video, but I hope that that's given you a lot to think about in terms of arrays and objects. You're going to have a lot more to learn about removing from objects, creating objects, you know, maybe getting into functions, messing around with your arrays and functions, mapping things. But anyway, I think this is enough to chew on for now. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and